Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Paring Down. Oh, man, today's episode is just such a wealth of wisdom from Suzanne Searcy Johnson. She was on the podcast years ago to talk about her first book when she kind of unpacked the work of Charles Wagner. And it was really all about the essence of simplicity in our lives. And she is back today because she has a brand new book out. It's called Beyond Decluttering: 40 Days to Experiencing Simplicity Through Connection. Suzanne also lives in a tiny house community. She is a writer, she is a poet, and more importantly, she's just a really grounded person with a ton of wisdom. Every time we speak, I feel like I walk away a better human being. And I think you're going to feel that today too. So this is a great conversation that takes decluttering to the next level. What I'm always talking about, that decluttering is a catalyst for intentional living in every area of our lives. So not only are you going to pick up on those themes, but you're also going to really experience the wisdom from somebody who is living in a way that I know I personally aspire to. So please enjoy this conversation with Suzanne Searcy Johnson. Suzanne, I'm so happy to have you on yet again on Paring Down. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
I know we were just saying off air that we think it's been about 2 years, and it's interesting with a podcast. I know you're starting your own podcast. I'd love for you to share about that too, but it feels like you make friends with someone when you have such an intense conversation for 45 minutes. And so to see you again 2 years later, I just feel like I'm catching up with an old friend. It's very fun.
That's how I feel. So this is great.
Oh, good. Yay. Well, for those who might have missed that first episode with you, which I will have in the show notes, would you introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about what you do?
I am Suzanne Searcy Johnson. I'm a writer and a poet, and I primarily write books around simplicity, though I have done a children's book and a collection of poetry as well. But what I do mainly is help women to experience simplicity through connection.
Simplicity through connection. And you have your new book out called Beyond Decluttering: 40 Days to Experiencing Simplicity Through Connection. So anyone who's like, what does that mean? Well, you're going to learn about it today. And she also has a book about it. Can you share what exactly you mean by the phrase simplicity through connection?
So I'm going to back up and I'm going to tell my story and kind of give you the whole spiel. So I have loved the concept of simplicity for years. In fact, going way back to the 1990s, I started reading books on simplicity. And in fact, the last time I was on, it was to talk about my A Vital Simplicity book, which took the writings of Charles Wagner from many years ago and his words on simplicity. So I've been really enamored with that concept. And so I, over the years, I did all the work. I did the decluttering. I did the organization, and which was all good. I am so grateful that I was able to go through that process. And though it took me many years, I'm glad that it did, because that's what I needed. But in that process, as I decluttered, I found that, okay, everything's pretty good. I feel good. I feel better, certainly. But what it did for me is it did two things. One is it made room for me to consider going deeper. And then two, it made me uncomfortable enough to really have to go deeper. And by that, I mean, I was left with an organized pantry and organized closet and all of those things, but I still felt like a bit unsettled, and eventually realized that it was that I was truly trying to control my environment. And so the path, simplicity through connection, is the decluttering and the organizing got me part of the way there. But it also highlighted the deeper work that I wanted to do. And I love how your podcast, you have different people on to talk about that deeper work. But for me, connection to nature, to others, to spirituality, and to myself helped me truly achieve a simple life. I mean, to an extreme, I did move into a tiny house in a tiny home community, but just overall, the peace and the rootedness that I feel now has come through that practice.
It's so wise. And it was one of the reasons it was such a quick yes for me to have you back on the show, is because of your grounded wisdom. And this is, I say this with the largest compliment and respect in the world, but most of the people in the space that I talk to are millennials, and that's not your generation. Right. And the longer we live, the more we see and understand of ourselves, of the world. That's the wisdom that comes with time. And I'm so grateful that you're sharing that in a space that wasn't exactly popular when you became interested in it in the 90s. And so you have this swath of experience that so many people like me don't have, because we weren't exposed to it until it became more mainstream. And also, you know, I was in elementary school in the 90s. So
thanks for that reminder. I was not in elementary school in the 90s.
Well, that's why I was like, I say this with all the respect, you know, but I want to bring that up because I think I want our listeners to hear the wisdom you hold through experience. And I know that they'll pick up on that big time today. So with your experience, you know that decluttering and organizing doesn't solve all our problems, which duh, but I think sometimes it becomes a form of control. There are worse forms of control out there. I'll say that.
Amen to that. Yep. I've tried them, by the way.
Yeah, but this grander scale simplicity and peace comes from something much, much deeper. What are some subtle signs that you found in yourself, or that someone else who's living in this disconnection might be able to see and say, oh, wait, I still got some work to do? Like, even if they look put together, their home looks put together on the outside, what are those signs that they're still living in disconnection?
So there are, a number of subtle things that you can see. And I think the obvious one that we all experience from time to time is if I'm scrolling on social media instead of interacting with the person right in front of me, if I'm avoiding relationships by doing that, then that's obviously I'm disconnected from that person. A lot of these things, there's nothing wrong with them, right? There's nothing wrong with scrolling on social media. There's nothing wrong with what I'm about to talk about with nature is if when I go outside and I do my walk or my run and I am so focused on how many steps I'm getting, or I have my earbuds in my ears and I'm listening to music and I'm not experiencing nature, then it's possible that I'm disconnected from nature, because we want to engage and experience that beautiful world that is around us. And then when I connect to that, well, we know. So we'll talk about benefits of connecting to nature. I'm sure we'll get into that. But that's another example of being disconnected from nature. If I don't slow down long enough, if I'm reluctant to slow down, let's say, and pray or meditate or whatever, spirituality looks different to everyone. Whatever it is that feeds my soul spiritually, if I'm kind of holding back or not wanting to experience that, then obviously I'm disconnected spiritually. But I think the hardest one, and the reason I do them in that order, is the nature, others, spirituality, and ourselves. I think the hardest one is knowing if I'm disconnected from myself. That's so easy to miss, but we don't, as a society, for the most part, enjoy or allow ourselves the opportunity to really tune into that intuition. If you're like me, it's so easy to get caught up in what's happening in the world and the comments and this and that, and really tuning into what lights my fire or what calms me down, what grounds me. That if I'm not able to do that, then I'm most likely disconnected internally.
Yeah, I think a lot of us feel that. And a lot of this disconnection, which you talk about in the book, and I'd love for you to expand on, it comes from distraction.
Yes.
So can you share a little bit more about the kinds of distractions we face? I know that you've already mentioned screens, like digital distractions. What are some other things that might keep us from getting in tune with spirituality, ourselves, nature, all of that?
I can tell you from my own experience, this is one that I don't go into in the book actually, but what just popped into my head that I've noticed lately about myself is I can distract myself just with unnecessary words, unnecessary talk about things that don't even matter. So that can, I can choose activities that distract me. I can choose entertainment that distracts me. You said digital, but can be any kind of entertainment. I can choose decluttering as a distraction. Like you said, it's a good thing, but that's what I did. What I did was I got the label maker that I still love and I still use, but I put everything in the bins and I labeled everything and it was pristine. And I did that from a young age, but that was my form of distraction and my form of control. Both of those things apply.
Yeah, I've said this before. I feel like decluttering is a wonderful catalyst to get us to look at our lives intentionally. But if it becomes that it's the end goal is just my space is decluttered and then I will feel in control, we're going to be sorely disappointed because everything is intersected. An example in my life, and I say this with a bit of pride, knowing that I still have a long way to go, but I am proud of the fact that my home isn't pristine because I live with people who don't value decluttering the same way I do. And my relationship and connection to my husband is more important to me than a pristine house. Now, of course, there's balance there. And of course, he respects my needs in terms of what makes me feel calm inside of a space and all of that. But it is so important to remember that a decluttered home isn't the end goal. The end goal is that we live a simpler life to focus on what matters. And what could possibly matter more, in my opinion, than our relationships?
Right, right. I did a post one time that seemed to resonate with people that was let's see our homes as not as places that we curate, but places we actually live. And I don't actually have a minimalist aesthetic, although in some ways I am a minimalist to live in 400 square feet, but I do have a simple life. And I like to have the things around me that remind me of the people that I love and that bring good feelings. And I don't want them stuck in a box somewhere. I actually want them where I can see them. But yes, the decluttering for me was very important and is very important to keep going in my life. And for some people, it's enough and they already, have the deeper work figured out, and that's great. But for me, it's like you said, it was a catalyst and is a catalyst to keep going deeper. It helps me appreciate what I have.
Oh, totally goes hand in hand with gratitude. And I was going to say, have I told you the running title for my new book?
No.
Okay, so everyone listening, this is not official yet, but Don't Save the Good Stuff is the running title because I couldn't agree more that it's not about just getting rid of stuff, although that's a big piece of it, but it's about displaying, using, loving, enjoying the things that remind us of the good stuff in life. My mom said before she passed away, don't save the good wine. So this is kind of a play on that. Yeah. And so I do think that piece is so important here. Hey guys, it's time for your ad break. Each week I like to say a huge thank you for your graciousness that these are part of the podcast. Here we go. My husband is really prone to sneezing fits, and I tend to get headaches, especially when stressed. So in the last year or two, we have really tried to figure out how to create the healthiest environment inside of our home. And a little over a year ago, we got ourselves an air doctor. It is the only air purifier we use inside of our home, and I cannot begin to express to you the world of difference it has made. It has reduced my husband's allergy symptoms, gives me so much peace of mind when it comes to my children's health, and I can just feel the lightness. The smells are different inside of our house. It's really amazing because all of the chemicals, when you're cooking, those go into the air, and it captures these airborne contaminants that you just don't want to be breathing in, like dust, pollen, mold spores, pet dander, wildfire smoke, bacteria, viruses, odors, ozone, and more. Head to airdoctorpro.com and use promo code PAIRING, that's PARING, remember there's no I in pair, to get up to $300 off today. Air Doctor comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee, plus a 3-year warranty, an $84 value for free. Get this exclusive podcast-only offer now at airdoctorpro.com, AIRDOCTORPRO.com. Use promo code PAIRING. You talked about nature, and I want to get into that a little bit because it is available to most of us. Even when you live in a big city, there is usually some sort of greenery. You can go outside, you can get some fresh air. And this is a really important piece of connection that modern humans often forget is right at our fingertips. Can you tell us specifically, actually, about what drew you to where you live with Village Farm Austin and how that relates to nature?
Yes, I love talking about Village Farm Austin. My sister actually lives about 40 minutes from here, and she found this community. So let me back up and say that I lived in the Nashville, Tennessee area for 37 years. And once I became an empty nester, I moved to Austin, Texas, which is where I am now. But over 3 years ago, my sister found this community because I had been, like a lot of people, watching tiny home shows for years. And most of us watch them and think, oh, wouldn't that be cool? But I kind of took it a step further, and I was like, when I'm an empty nester, this is what I'm doing. I just don't know where. And so my sister found this community, and I flew down here and walked it and fell in love with it. And what makes it unique is Village Farm Austin is an agrihood. It is a tiny home community that's built around an organic farm. And so on Saturdays, we have a farm stand, and I go get my produce, and I come home and I fix it up for lunch. It's just a wonderful place. So that connection to nature is definitely there. And in fact, we just opened our community garden. So I have a 4x4 plot in our community garden, and I have tomatoes already. I mean, we're recording this in April. The tomatoes are already there on the tomato plants. Yes. Yes. And I have, other beans and other things growing, but they're not quite there yet. Lettuce, all those things. And so I have we have our community garden that we work on together, but each of us has our own individual plots. We have community here where we really do care about each other, and we take care of it. We're on a chat together. And if somebody needs something, hey, I need a cup of sugar. Well, a cup of sugars actually never happened, but you get it.
As the old phrase goes.
I need help with X, and then somebody's there to help them out. So I couldn't be happier. I mean, I certainly miss my son decided to go to school in Tennessee. So I had no way of knowing that was going to happen. But, I miss being close to him, but I do manage to see him quite often. And all of my kids, I try to see as much as I can. So.
I mean, it sounds to me idyllic. I'm like, yes, put me in a tiny house, put me in a community of people that takes care of each other. In a way, it reminds me, minus the garden and the nature aspect. Well, the nature is different here in Alaska, but that's living on a military base in Alaska. Yeah. Everyone is in a pretty small little home. We all take care of each other, and we get exposure to nature every day. And I'm telling you, that combination of three things is a recipe for joy. And in fact, can you expand on that a little bit of how being connected to nature is connected to simplicity?
Oh, that's a great question. So a number of ways. I'm going to rattle them off here, and you can just jump on any of them that you want to talk more about. But obviously, if I'm out in nature and I'm, exercising, I'm going to be healthier, fewer medical bills, et cetera. But there's, studies, of course, that show that being out in nature calms us, helps with blood pressure, helps lower stress, our outlook on life improves. So all those physical aspects, there's that. Then there's what I see in nature when I'm out there is it's entertainment. When I am truly experiencing with my senses, I'm listening to the birds. I'm looking at the clouds like I did as a kid and imagining what's there. The images that I see when I'm smelling flowers, when I'm truly engaging with nature, it is entertaining to me. I find it less appealing to pay for entertainment, to go outside for entertainment. It also grounds me to, no pun intended, grounds me to this beautiful earth that we have and what is my responsibility in making sure it's here for future generations. And part of that curbs my spending. I mean, it helps with the decluttering aspect because I am less inclined to buy things to clutter up my space because I'm connected to nature. It simplifies my buying. It simplifies my health. It simplifies my outlook. It simplifies my entertainment. I mean, and it's free.
Right.
So, it's a win, 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 win.
Yeah, there's really no losing going out in nature. It's the best. I just this weekend saw the movie Hoppers with my kids. It's a new Pixar movie.
Oh,
And there's a line in it. As you were talking, I Googled it so I can read it verbatim because it reminded me of what you're saying. And the grandmother character says this. She says, "It's hard to be mad when you feel like you're part of something big."
mm,
And that simplifies our trains of thought. Like you were saying, it simplifies so many things. But for me, it helps me see the big picture of where I stand in the world, which is a
mhm.
humble stance, you know? And because of that humble stance, you recognize that all the things that we feel are so big, that we get so worked up about, that
Yes.
clutter up our minds and our emotions, are in many ways superfluous, right?
Hmm.
And it allows just that bigger perspective so you can really zone in on what is actually important in life. And there's something about just being in nature and kind of being put in your place by the vastness of nature that allows us to see what's actually important. It's where wisdom grows. So I love that. But to backtrack a little bit, I love that you live in a tiny home. I think that's the coolest thing ever. I'm going to ask you about something called blue zones, which you have in your book. It relates to your community. But first, I just have to know out of curiosity, what is your favorite thing about living in a tiny home and what is the hardest thing?
That's a good question. Well, you have lots of good questions. I think my favorite thing is I just feel at home with less. And I guess it maybe isn't my favorite thing, but it's the most surprising thing is that I save time because I don't have to look for things. I pretty much know where everything is. And it just makes life easier. I feel when I walk in the door, I feel at home. It's a space that I'm in every room every day. It just feels right to me. But the hardest thing is I had an adjustment period of you just have to be adaptable. You have to be adaptable because if I want to make a smoothie, I've got to go to the pantry at the floor and pull up the blender and come out and put it on the counter because I'm not going to have everything out on my counter. It just takes more effort to do things because it's not all easily accessible. And you've certainly lived with military housing. I'm sure you've lived in very small spaces with a lot of people. So 399 square feet might sound like a pretty good deal for one person. But it's just like those little things that the way that I reach my cabinet, everything's just not easily accessible. So I had to learn to adjust to that.
I love that you use the word adaptable, though, because I learned this lesson when I was 20. How old was I? I was 22 when I went on this dog sledding trip in Ely, Minnesota with
Oh my
9
gosh.
strangers, 7 nights in the negative 15-degree weather. I'd never dog sledded. We slept on frozen
No,
lakes. It was
just no.
crazy. Yeah, I know. Everyone hears that and they're like, "Oh my gosh." I remember right after it ended saying that was the most fun thing I've ever done that I will never do again. But I learned the lesson that we can adapt to just about anything. On the first 2 nights, I thought I might not make it. I mean, we don't even have real tents, we just have a tarp over us and it is freezing. There's no words for how cold it is. And the only thing keeping you warm in your sleeping bag is that we would boil water over the fire, which we would make by drilling a hole in the ice in the lake to get the water and then boil it over the fire, put it in our water bottles, and you would cuddle. You would spoon your water bottle for warmth at night. And that's how you stayed warm. And I just remember, and I was exhausted because, again, the only way to stay warm when you're awake is movement. So that's why everyone has, of course, a job when you're setting up camp after you've gone however many miles cross country skiing and with the 2 or 3 teams of dogs we had. So all of this to say is I was miserable and I really was struggling. And then I remember it was night maybe 5 and someone said it's hot chocolate o'clock. And so we all stop what we're doing to get around the fire. And I'm drinking my coffee and laughing with friends. And then that I'd made, and it felt easy. It felt normal. It felt like it didn't feel like I wasn't going to make it. And I thought, Holy cow, human beings are amazing. We can adapt to anything. We can normalize any experience in life. So if you, in the first 2 weeks, it's a pain to get that blender out when you live in this tiny home. A year in, you probably don't think twice about it.
Right. Have you ever read the book, The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter?
Oh, yeah, girl. I love that book.
Okay. Yeah. What you were describing made me think of that. And like, I'm like, hats off to you for what you did. I don't think that I would be able to adapt to that. Certainly not at my age, but that's
I was
amazing.
22.
Yeah, right.
So anyway, yeah, I think that's a great lesson too, because what a gift in our lives to know that we can be adaptable. And I'm sure that that has been a wonderful gift for you too. And a lesson you're continually learning in a small home. So there's something you talk about in the book called blue zones, and they really are a kind of a reflection of Village Farm Austin. But what are blue zones, and what are some things we can focus on to mimic them in our own lives?
Okay, well, I first heard about blue zones through the Netflix documentary. I think it's called Live to 100, Secrets of the Blue Zones or something like that.
Oh,
Dan Butner, I believe is his name. We can do a link to it if you remind me. I'll get you that for you. And he went to 5 or 6 different locations all over the world where people live to be much older than other areas. And he looked at what they all had in common. And so there are certain things that blue zones have in common. And when there's Lisa Apfelberg is a resident here who is a vegan, and she's an amazing woman. And she said, you know what? It looks like we kind of have some of those same components. And people across the world after this documentary and after his books were like, well, maybe we can create a blue zone. So she got everybody together and they watched the documentary. And then we've I can't say that we're a blue zone, but there are things that we've adopted, and I can tell you a few of them. Blue zones typically do eat a vegan diet, like 95 to 100%, but not everybody here does. I don't. I am moving closer and closer to that, but that's one of the things. And because we live on a farm, we get nice, fresh, organic produce. So that's part of it. What most people in blue zones do is the exercise is just a natural part of their daily life. You know, they might work the land or whatever they do. Exercise is it's not something you suit up and go to the gym. It's something that you do in your everyday life. They all have some type of sense of belonging or faith. So there's that spiritual connection. The community is critically important. Again, connection to other people. I talked about the connection to nature. There's a sense of purpose, which is an internal connection. Again, it all influenced kind of my perspective on connection. And there are like 8 or 9 of them. I'm sure I'm forgetting some of them, but basically we look to try to do events here that are like that. We'll have, full moon gatherings where we'll walk, or we have a lot of get-togethers. We'll have vegan potluck, those kinds of things. And also just we take care of each other. And I think that's also part of blue zones, is that feeling of, I'm going to take care of my loved ones. I'm going to make sure that they're okay. And that's what we do here as well.
Yeah. And forgive me if I missed it when you're talking, but how the life expectancy is the piece that makes this so interesting, right? It's that the people in these blue zones, they live how much longer?
They live to 100. I mean, a lot of them live to 100. I mean, that's the whole premise of it is, it's a really interesting documentary. There's I think it's a series. There's several different episodes. I watched it before I ever moved here, but it was just, it makes you think about, okay, I spend a lot of time on these endeavors and it's fine, but how about I look at what matters? Like I look to the people around me and I think about, what I'm eating, but even when I'm cooking a meal, like I'm not distracted by something else. I'm like appreciating this food, this lettuce that I got from the farm or whatever. It's like this intentionality around living is what I took from it. And that's what I love, is that piece of, I want to enjoy this life. And I'm about to turn 60 next month. So I told you before you recorded, I let my hair go gray. I am like embracing that. I am so grateful that I still get to be here. And I want to be, as the years go on, I just want to be more and more intentional with how I live. And if it works out that I get to live a long, long life, then great. All the better.
All the better. Happy early birthday. When this comes out,
you.
It'll be happy belated birthday when this comes out. Everyone knows I'm recording early for the move to Finland. So as you were talking, it's interesting because the older I get, and this is ironic given how my career has exploded quite a bit in the last 3 years, but the older I get, the simpler and smaller of a life I want. When I was young, I always felt very comfortable in the public. I am not naturally a super private person. I used to think I might want to be a Broadway performer. I always felt like I wanted to live this really big life. And of course, that's a beautiful thing. And I still have dreams for my life. That's not saying that we shouldn't have aspirations and ambitions. If they are big, that's fine. However, I will say that the older I get, the more I see the wisdom and the more I desire the simplicity of everything you were just saying. In these blue zones, right? They're connected to a smaller group of people. They're connected to nature. They aren't focused on appearances. You know, it's not about who's the wealthiest, who's the most famous, who's all of these big life type of things when people dream of some big fancy life. It's the simplicity of being connected to themselves, each other, and the world around them. And that allows us to be the most successful in terms of being happy and living long, healthy, connected lives.
Absolutely.
And so, wow, right?
Yeah, I got to say that I've heard you sing and you could be a Broadway singer. Just FYI, you're really talented. But I think that we've got, what you just said was so beautiful. I think that we've got to reframe the definition of a big life, because I have a big life. It's a simple one, but it is so abundant and so rich and so full that I doubt I could be happier. I mean, it's life. We're going to have challenges. And even in this community, it's not perfect, but I have the life that I wanted. And I think a lot of times simplicity is really about letting go of the things that get in the way of the life that I want. And I've been able to let go of those things. And I feel like I am exactly where I'm meant to be at this time.
Yeah, I think you are too. It's really inspiring. There's an entire section on your book about relationships, because being connected to each other is another huge piece of going beyond decluttering to find simplicity and know what actually matters in life. And you have an entire chapter dedicated, or a section, I should say, dedicated to apologies. Why was that important to you to make its own section?
Oh, that's interesting. So actually, the reason that's in the book is, you know, Stephanie Safarian, right? Sustainable Minimal. Yeah, I think I found you on her podcast. So I've been on her podcast, and we spent some time actually together. And I sent her an early draft of my book, and she said, one of the things that I think you should put in the book is how you seem to know how to apologize, and a lot of people don't. And so put that in the book. And so I did. But I went through a time of, I was so disconnected and so trying to control my life that I ended up drinking too much. And then I got to this place of, I had to surrender. I had to let go and recognize that that was not healthy. And so I did some recovery work. And part of that work was around relationships. And it was taken, well, I mean, there's this, take a hard look at your entire life and all the mistakes you made, but it's a good thing, because then it's like, okay, I realize I can see things clearly now. And what I had been trying to avoid, I can now face, right? And part of it is relationships with other people. I think in the book I talk about my stepdaughter, my daughter, and making that amends. But anyway, I learned how to make amends, and I learned that it meant you let the other person tell you how they feel. And you don't, like, when I really mean it, I don't say I'm sorry, but, or I'm sorry, and here's my perspective. I don't think about why. All of my reasons, my backstory is irrelevant when I've harmed someone. And so what I have found in my life is when I can own my mistakes, when I'm made aware of them, I have to be made aware of them. But when I can own my mistakes and get to that level with another person where I say, tell me how you felt, how you feel. Tell me what I've done and what I can do to make it right. That's an apology. And that will mend relationships, and that will open up pathways to connection, not just in that moment, but going forward. So I'm glad she suggested it, because I think it is an important thing that right now it's really hard for us, collectively speaking, to own mistakes. Mm-hmm. It just seems like it's a challenge, and it's not a weakness. We see it as a weakness. And it's not a weakness. It's a point of connection. We all are human beings. We all make mistakes. What we do with those mistakes is what matters.
Yeah. You know, for me, it's easy to see that with my kids. Like, I feel like I recognize that if I need to apologize to my kids for something, I cannot include any sort of justification in that apology, because then they will just see it as, oh, I still deserved that behavior, right?
Aww.
Like, if I raise my voice at my kids, this happened just this past weekend, Suzanne, it was a night. Oh my gosh. I just have to say this because parents will be like, okay, I get it. The kids had been complaining, you know, the whole thing, getting ready for bed. It's already stressful. We're late going to bed. It was already a thing. And then my 4-year-old took my husband's AirPods out of his pocket and dropped them in the toilet where he had just did a number 2.
Oh no,
which was still in the toilet. And I was not in the room in the bathroom when it happened. My husband was getting them into the bath when this all went down. And I hear him, and my husband does not get worked up. Like, he's just a pretty even-keeled guy. And he was trying to hold it together. And so I come in the room and I see what's going on, and I was mad. I was like, this is outrageous. Like, we're throwing AirPods in the toilet. I can't handle this. And so I raised my voice. I was really upset. Everybody out of the bath. I'm not even washing your hair. You're getting in bed, you know? But it was too harsh of a reaction. I don't think my 4-year-old specifically meant to put it in the poopy toilet. You know what I mean? My other kids, you know, they're 6 and 8. They're not going to be regulated all the time. And it's my job to keep it together. And I did not keep it together, Suzanne. And so I had to apologize to them. I apologized to them before bed. You know, I'm pretty quick. When I'm a kind of a flash in the pan kind of a girl. And so I can come down really fast and recognize that wasn't okay. But then we had a family meeting the next morning where I said, I'm so sorry. It doesn't matter what kind of crazy thing happens. I should never raise my voice at you. You guys know that when a mommy yells, which hopefully isn't that often, it is never your fault. It is 100% mommy's fault for not being able to take care of my feelings. And it's not, but if you could just not throw AirPods in the potty, or if you guys could just get to bed without complaining, I was like, I can't say any of that, or else this will not mean anything to them.
And what an example you are giving your children. You have now taught them how to apologize, right? You've shown I'm a human being, I make mistakes, and you are raising them to be responsible people going forward. That's beautiful.
Well, thanks. Yeah. So I feel like as adults, we have to have the same grace that we see and we give to our kids, and recognize that they can only process an apology that doesn't have justifications. Well, same for adults. We don't process those unless they're without justification. Another point of disconnect or opportunity for connection besides apologies that you talk about is expectations. Can you share a little bit about how expectations lead to disconnect in relationships?
Right. Well, if I have an expectation about how you're supposed to behave and you don't do what I want you to do, well, really, I'm just trying to control you. I've heard it said, this is not an original thing. I've heard it said, expectations are premeditated resentments. So basically, I have an expectation of you and how you're supposed to react, behave, think, act, whatever. And when you don't follow my script, then in my mind, I have a justification for resenting you. That's not how we have relationship. And I'm not saying that it's bad to have an expectation. I mean, there are certain expectations that are baseline. I expect that you won't punch me in the nose when I see you in the grocery store.
Correct. Yes.
Obviously, there are baseline, but I don't get to make up a story in my head I don't get to, another thing that I love is what else might be true. If I think I know what you're thinking and how you're going to react to me, then I've got all this in my head of how it's going to play out. That's just exhausting. The simpler approach is just be there. Just be a friend, be another human being. And actually, instead of thinking about what I want to say next, actually listen to what you have to say. So, I mean, we could talk about relationships for about 4 hours and not even scratch the surface, I think.
100%. I think I'm going to do a good stuff series. On Wednesdays, I release episodes now about what's the good stuff in life and how to have more of that. Tuesdays, what are we getting rid of? We're decluttering. Wednesdays, what are we filling our lives with? And I'm going to do a mini series on relationships and community and all of that, because yes, I mean, we could talk forever on it. But kind of on this note of relationships and community, actually, your friend Jessie said, and you quoted this in the book, if you're connected, you won't have to ask your neighbor if they're hungry. You'll just see a need and offer them something to eat. I want to read that again. It gives me goosebumps. If you're connected, you won't have to ask your neighbor if they're hungry. You'll just see a need and offer them something to eat. That's powerful. How can we become more aware of other people's needs without being intrusive or overstepping?
That's good. I think sometimes we might overstep and not mean to, but what I see here in this community is we just get to know each other. Like when there's not even a need, we just get to know each other. I love to tell this story. I hadn't been living here very long, and my next door neighbor is Jim, and I had made some soup and I had extra, and so I put some in a container, and I was walking out my door to take it to him, and I look on my front porch and he's got a container of soup that he has left for me. like you just get to know people. And it goes back to the thing that I struggle with sometimes is just learning about them. I need to be more interested in you than I am in what I'm going to say next. And I think sometimes people find it really hard to accept help. But I mean, it's obvious when there's a death in the family or something. But actually what I've started doing when that happens is give them a multiple choice. You know, I will, instead of saying, what can I do? I will come clean your house. I'll take your kid, whatever.
Yes.
Choose one. But I don't know how, sometimes we might overstep. But if I'm really getting to know you, then I probably am going to have a sense for what works for you and what doesn't.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's like we can solve this problem of being generous by simply connecting and asking how you're doing and being there on a regular basis. And I think that's what we struggle with, even with our families, like extended families, for example, or friendships this day and age. It's very disjointed, especially in adulthood, when you're no longer in high school and college where you're around the same people day after day. You see your friends once in a while, or you don't see your family, your extended family, every single day. And that takes away our ability to naturally know how to show up for someone. So we say, how are you? What can I do for you? And that question can actually make us feel so isolated, because in our souls, we don't want someone to have to ask. It's that classic marriage thing. We don't want someone to have to ask what we need. We want people to know what we need. And we have that desire to do the same for other people.
Right.
What do they need? There's a reel, it's quite funny, that has gone viral multiple times. And it's this woman eating her meal, clearly at like a Christmas dinner or a big family get together. And you just see that whoever has the camera is facing her, and they must be holding a remote control, because the TV behind her, you see the volume getting pushed down. And then you see her look up from her meal. She sees her husband, and she just gives him this nod of appreciation. Like, thank you for turning down that TV. She was clearly overstimulated. We've all been there. But what's precious about it and why it's gone viral is because he knew her need. She didn't ask, can you turn down the TV? It was, she was eating her meal. He looked at this woman he loved, and he knew the TV was too loud for her. And isn't that what we want? We want to express our loves that way, and we want to feel love that way. And my listeners know I'm a Christian. This podcast is certainly not just for Christians, but it reminds me in 1 Corinthians 1 Corinthians 12:26, it says, if one part suffers, every part suffers with it. If one part is honored, every part rejoices with it. And when I read that scripture, I often think we can't possibly suffer with another part of the body, another person, another believer. That's what the scripture is talking about, unless we know them enough to know they're suffering. And we can't honor them and rejoice with them unless we know what they're rejoicing. There's such power in simply knowing each other to show up generously. And I just love how you write about that in your book.
Thank you. And I think from what you just said, another thing that had popped into my mind earlier was if I'm spiritually connected, whatever that looks like for me, if I'm spiritually connected, it naturally follows that I'm going to be more in tune with those around me. And I'm going to feel that nudging. I call them nudgings that I get, my spiritual nudgings that kind of lead me to what I need to do. If I can slow down long enough to feel that, and then I'm going to know, oh yeah, this person seems to be isolated. Maybe they need, for me to invite them for a walk around the neighborhood. I do think that that sort of comes to us. And certainly there are different phases in life too that can, when you've got 3 young kids, it's not always easy to say, hey, I'm going to go out for a walk with my neighbor. And I'm at a place in my life where I have that luxury of being able to spend more time with my neighbors. And I've never done that before, and I'm really enjoying it here.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. Well, and what it speaks to is your values, right? If it's whatever your spiritual values are, it gets you outside of yourself. It forces you to say, my worldview isn't the only one. My experiences aren't the only ones. My suffering's not the only one. My things that make me happy, the things I'm rejoicing in aren't the only things to rejoice about. It forces you to say, I am not the end all be all of presence. The value here is that we have to get outside of ourselves and look at the people around us. What are they going through? It's basic empathy in many ways. So I feel the same way I felt last time we talked, Suzanne, which is I could talk to you forever. I could soak up your wisdom forever. Thank you so much for coming on and talking about what goes beyond decluttering, as your book is titled, so that when people listen, they can see, okay, it is important to pare down our home, to simplify our lives, to give ourselves this freedom that you have found in your tiny home but it's really the freedom to explore these deeper parts of life that are what will bring us fulfillment. So can you share with everyone where they can get your book and anything else, your podcast, all of that good stuff?
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you. I mean, I love what you do, which is why I talk about you in the book. So spoiler alert, she's in there. But no, I think what you're doing is wonderful. And I'm so happy to see the book and all of that. I just can't wait. So, and the move and all those good things.
Thank you so much.
But yes, you can find me. I think I'll give you a link to my link tree, which is the easiest. And my website is SuzanneSearcyJohnson.com. I'll give you that as well. But my link tree, I have links to my books there. There's even a link to a tiny home tour. I did a tiny home tour with Tiny House Giant Journey YouTube channel recently. Cool. And that went live a month ago. And so if you want to see my tiny house, my link is on the link tree. I've got that, ways that you can work with me. Also freebies, I do have a freebie that is, how can I tell if I'm disconnected? It's questions you can answer to see. And also I have a freebie, different ways that you can nurture those daily connections. So all of that you'll find on that link tree. So I'll send you that.
Yes, definitely send me that. All of that will be in the show notes. I can't wait to watch the house tour. And thank you again, Suzanne.
Thank you so much.
You just listened to an episode of Paring Down with me, Shannon Leyko. Please don't forget to hit follow or subscribe, and I will love you forever and ever if you leave a 5-star review, because those reviews are so helpful on the back end of things. And for more resources about decluttering and intentional living, sign up for my short weekly newsletter, The Less Express, which you can find in the show notes, and follow along on social media. Just look me up. I'm Shannon Leyko, Leyko. Thank you so much for listening.